Hello. I was looking at Tom and he looked at me, and I was like, what do you want? See, look, put your hand down.
The other day, you were talking about how we're social by nature, right? Okay. And let's see, I'll call on Claire way back there. Claire, what is one of the ways, one of the proofs that we know, just from using our reason, okay, that we are social by nature? What's one of the ways? Communication, we are our speech, okay? We can speak, we can communicate, and express concepts and ideas, okay? Which the animals cannot do, the lower animals. Only we can do, because we are endowed with an intellect and a free will. Okay? So that's one of the things we can do, is communicate. Okay? And another reason why we are social by nature is what, Corey? Can you tell me? What's another reason besides the fact that we can communicate? There's something about our status, okay?
Well, like free will.
Well, free will, yes, we have that too. That makes us social by nature, our intellect and free will. But there's something else I mentioned as well. Yes?
People naturally come together.
People naturally come together, okay? People naturally socialize, okay? You could say even animals do that, but we socialize for purposes, okay? And we talked about a couple of those purposes, the reasons why we have to socialize. And what are those? What's one?
We need others, okay, because we're not self-sufficient without.
We're not self-sufficient, okay?
So A would be food, subsistence, cooperation.
Okay.
B, education.
Okay.
Passed down and shared. That's how we got like this.
Yes. Well, we know that people naturally socialize, and please, all computers are off.
Okay.
Wait, I was just checking my email.
Well, not in class, okay? So we're social because we have needs that need to be fulfilled with other people. It makes sense that we have to cooperate with this. Okay? And that's why people go into different trades and different jobs, because this makes sense humanly speaking. Okay? You have those who supply food, the farmers, those who grow the food, okay? Those who supply the food, those who package the food. Okay? If everyone had to do this themselves, it would make life very difficult. So with our intelligence, we have needs to fulfill for sustenance, our food, okay? For education. Okay? That's how we have what we have today, because the knowledge that we have is passed down, it's inherited. It's really a good that we can all share in, okay? Because well, let me read something here for you. You know, we just got through some cold weather. Feels like springtime. It's about 50 degrees warmer, think about that, than it was a week ago. And but just to show you how life was, maybe like 80 years ago. This is a woman in one of my parishes, Joyce Lubniewski, and she writes articles in the Kenosha News sometimes. And she compiled these in a little book. She's an author. And in one of these articles, she talked about growing up in Kenosha back in the 1920s. And one of the things that she said, she was at like I think about where 52nd Street is now and 40th Avenue. Okay, that's where she grew up. And this was not a very populated area at the time. And she says that in order to get water, okay, they had no indoor plumbing, okay, because no one did at this time. when she was growing up, when she was a little girl. No indoor plumbing, you couldn't go to the faucet and turn on the water, okay? They had a well, and their well that they built their house next to was one of the good wells that didn't run dry. And so other neighbors, when their wells ran dry and they didn't have water even to cook with, they would come over and take water out of their well. But what was interesting, I found, she said that in the wintertime, when it was maybe below zero and snow on the ground, and you had to either wash or do dishes, she would have to go out to the well with a 5-gallon bucket and draw water out of the well, put it in the bucket, and then, I don't know if you've ever walked with water in a full bucket, but it's kind of difficult, especially, she said, in the snow, because she's traipsing through the snow, and she said you had to be careful or else the water's dumping all over, getting your shoes soaked, and you had to go out and do this many times, okay? Go back and forth to have cooking water, to bathe in. You had to bring the water in, then heat it up, okay, in order to bathe, unless you wanted to take a cold bath, okay. But this was what life was like back 80 years ago right here in Kenosha. And this woman's alive. She's about 80. So this was probably back in the 30s she's talking, okay? And when she was a child. But this is an example of how, through the knowledge that's been passed down, our lives are much easier now. Okay? One of the pieces of evidence that we're social beings, because we have knowledge that is an inheritance, and our technology is a good. Okay? It's a good that we can all share in, and we all benefit from that today. Okay? Yes, at the end of class, just something. Okay? And so those are a couple of examples of how we are social beings. But there's another one I wanted to talk about today. And I've touched on it a little bit just with what I've said. And another evidence that we are social beings is that we need to pursue common goods. Okay? And I forgot. We need others to pursue. Okay? We need others. Okay? That's the point. Others to pursue common goods. Okay? We need other people to pursue common goods. Now, what are common goods? That's an important term. Okay? Common goods are. Okay, when we speak about common goods, one, they can be shared in by all. Okay? And two, they don't diminish or lessen. Or lessen, en, not on, when shared in, okay? When shared in, when people share in them, okay? When shared in, okay? Okay? We can share in, common goods can be shared in by everyone, and they don't diminish, they don't lessen, okay? When many people share in them. Can you think of some examples of common goods? Now, I'll say this. What aren't common goods, okay?
DVDs.
What are not? Okay?
True.
What are not?
You
Okay?
don't need to share.
You guys
What are, okay? Shh. Okay. What are not common goods? For example, okay? Food is not a common good because when you share in food, there's less of the food, okay? Money is not a common good because when people take money, if you have a pot of money and people start taking money, sharing it, well, there's less money, okay? So those are examples of goods that aren't common, okay? Food, money, but what would be some examples of goods that are common that everyone shares in, okay? Everyone shares in, and they don't lessen when people share in them. They don't get any less, okay? What is an example, Corey?
School.
School, well,
Everybody shares school. I mean, we all share the same learning system.
okay, well, okay, that's an idea. You share in, okay, say safety rules, okay? Rules of safety in a school, okay? So that could be an example of a common good. Some classic examples of common goods that you know in the Church's social teaching would be, for example, peace. Okay? Now, everyone in a family or a city, okay? Family, city, a state, okay? A country, they could share in peace. And peace doesn't lessen when people share in it. Okay? So that's an example of a common good. Another one, a very important one, is civic friendship. Okay? Civic friendship. We want to be in good relation with other people in the community. Okay, civic friendship. You know, people in a family can share in that. In a city, in a state, in a country. And with a civic friendship, there's usually a basis of common interests. Okay. And values, okay, that people share, okay? Common interests, okay? Values, okay? And this could vary with culture, okay? But the common interests or values, but civic friendship is something that every nation needs. Civic friendship actually is getting a little more difficult to see these days. And that's because of what we call the culture war going on. Okay? Because people aren't sharing in common interests and values and morality, okay? If you don't have a common morality, if you're split on morality, what is good, what is evil, people don't even know what good and evil is, well then it makes it difficult, okay, to have civic friendship. Because even to talk about, you know, what are common goods, okay? It's if you're not sharing the same moral value, the same morals, that makes civic friendship difficult. So this is another example of how we are social by nature. Though we need others to pursue common goods. That makes us social. Okay, and well, from here I'm going to go back and talk about justice, okay? Because I know that we left off there the other day. Okay?
No, you don't.
If you recall the other day we were saying that of the four cardinal virtues, which are what, John, etc. Four cardinal virtues are prudence,
Fortitude,
and
justice,
temperance. Okay, temperance. You were dealing with those questions yesterday. Okay, what it means to have temperance. Okay, to regulate our desires for things. Okay. justice is the one cardinal virtue that is always social. Okay. Justice is pardon me, the one social, the one cardinal virtue that is always social. Okay. So justice is social. Okay. That virtue. Okay. Yes.
Do we have to rewrite that kind of stuff, like if you already have to write down some notes?
Yeah, because write it again because I'm going to be expanding on it. Okay. So justice is social, and when we say social, we mean directed toward other people. Okay. Toward others. Okay. Whereas if you're talking about prudence, you're talking about ourselves, or fortitude, being courageous, that's usually ourselves. But justice is social, it's directed towards others. And what was the definition that I gave the other day of justice? If you could repeat that to me. Let me see, Myron. Okay, what was the definition of justice?
You didn't say that. It was Nicole that said it.
What are you talking about?
Well, yeah, but I wrote it on the board, so you should have it in your notes, okay?
You said it was a virtue.
Wait, I'm talking to my. Oh, justice is a virtue. Hey. No talking or catcalling, okay?
Leave that, that's blood. I like that. Quit catcalling, dude.
Okay.
Do like roof out later.
So Myron, what was the definition I wrote on the board for the virtue of justice? Okay, because in fact Nicole gave it to me, I think, and then I wrote it on the board. What justice is? What is justice? It is the virtue concerning what? Okay. And maybe you could help them. What is the definition of? Wait. We don't exchange notebooks during the class, okay? Just keep the notebook, okay? You should have that in your notes, okay? Because I wrote it on the board. So Hannah, what is the definition I gave of justice the other day?
I don't. Oh, okay. Giving to others what is owed to them.
Is giving to others. It's the virtue where we give to others what is owed or due to them. And others includes not only other people, but first of all God and other people, our neighbor. Okay, that's what justice is. Okay, it is the virtue which is a firm disposition of the will to do good. Okay? And in regard to justice, it is the firm disposition of the will to give others what is due to them, what is owed to them. And others meaning God and our neighbor. Okay? That's what justice is. Okay? And justice is directed towards others. And justice, even though it's directed towards others, it begins with a personal act. Okay? It always concerns or deals with personal actions. Okay? Personal actions.
Always deal with personal life.
So personal action.
With personal moral choices. Okay? So justice isn't just something out there, okay, that doesn't deal with individuals. Okay? When there is justice or lack of justice, it's due to personal actions by people. Okay? That's what I mean. Justice or lack of it is due to people's actions. Okay? So, justice or injustice has its root, okay, the root in personal actions, okay, personal moral choices. Okay. It's us. Okay. If you want a better moral system, then we improve ourselves. There's a story, a kind of a famous story, in the London Times about 80 years ago. The London Times had an essay contest, and the essay contest was this: okay, what's wrong with the world? Okay. And people wrote in and gave their opinion on what's wrong with the world. And one gentleman wrote in, his name is Gilbert Kenneth Chesterton. He's one of the great Christian authors back in the last century. And G.K. Chesterton answered or wrote into the contest and said, the answer to, fellas, listen, I don't want talking when I'm talking. Is that understood? Or else I'll have you downstairs in the office. And you can stay after school today. Would you like that? Do you want that?
Stay after school?
Yeah. You'll stay after school. That's detention, okay? We're talking in class, okay? When I'm talking, I don't want you talking. Is this difficult? What's going on? Okay?
Oh, I was just saying like.
You be quiet.
All right, I got
if you
you.
have something to say, you raise your hand and I will call on you.
I got you.
Is there something you don't understand?
Oh, no, I understand a lot. I'm good.
Okay, good. Okay. Fine, as long as we understand each other, okay? Now, as I was saying, G.K. Chesterton answered the essay contest, What's Wrong with the World, with a simple statement, I am, signed G.K. Chesterton. And he won the essay contest because people recognized that this was a good insight. What's wrong with the world? I am. If we want to make the world better, then we start improving ourselves. Okay? We become better persons. That's how to change the world. Not just to point the finger at other people and say, oh, this is what's wrong, this is what's wrong. We become saints. That's how we bring about a good social order and treat people well, God and others. Okay, and that's what social justice deals with. Okay, now many people associate justice with rights. Okay. And there's some value to that, okay? Associating justice with rights, okay? But really, justice, okay, while it does concern rights in a sense, it also is rooted in duties and obligations, okay? Duties and moral obligations. From God. Okay? How do we know this? Well, we can look at the Ten Commandments, okay? The Ten Commandments don't speak of don't speak of rights. No. Jesus doesn't talk about rights either. Okay. The Ten Commandments, the first three, deal with God. Okay. And thou shalt. Okay. Thou shalt worship God alone. That's the first commandment. Okay. No other gods before me. Okay. That's a duty and an obligation. If you want a just social order, well then everyone should be worshiping the one true God. Not false gods. So justice rooted in moral duties, moral obligations. You know, the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt worship God alone. Not take his name in vain. Okay. Okay. God's name is holy. The holy name of God. Okay, we don't take his name in vain. And thirdly, we keep holy the Sabbath. Okay. That's part of having a good social order. Okay. Our duty, our moral obligation to worship God and keeping holy the Sabbath. Do you know, in the beginning of our country, if you didn't go to church on Sunday, in some states, because many of the states had established religions, you could be arrested and thrown into jail because you were considered a pagan. Okay? And, well, everyone has to go to church on Sunday. Everyone has to fulfill the moral obligation of worshiping God in some way. Our Constitution allowed different ways to do that. I mean, different denominations, but they expected everyone to be going to church on Sunday. And you were thought a criminal if you weren't keeping the Sabbath holy, okay? Which is it's a reasonable idea. If you listen, if you have something to say, you raise your hand. Is that understood? Okay. I just said what's that? Come on. Okay. So I'll call on you. What?
I don't believe
You don't believe what?
arresting people for not going to church.
Well, I'm not saying that's necessarily a good idea.
Reasonable.
I said there's some reasonableness to that. People could, arguably say, okay, if people are ignoring the Sabbath and not keeping God's day holy, that people enact laws. Laws are rules of right reason, and there were laws that said, hey, everyone should be going to church on Sunday. Okay? So there's some element of reasonableness to that. I wouldn't do it myself. Obviously, you wouldn't. But there were people who thought that was a good idea to be enforcing the laws of the state to make sure that people kept the Sabbath. Now, the other 7 commandments, okay, the other 7 commandments deal with our neighbor, okay? Thou shalt honor thy father and mother, not kill, not commit adultery, not steal, not lie, okay, not covet. Okay. So, if we look at God's law, we don't see God talking about rights. We see God talking about duties and moral obligations. Okay. That's in the old law. Okay. The old law, the law of Moses, is the 10 Commandments. What about the new law? The new law is the law of love of Jesus Christ. We love God and with all our hearts, mind, soul, and strength, and we love our neighbor as ourselves. That's the summation of the 10 Commandments. Okay, that's what Jesus teaches us, and that's a duty and moral obligation that we have. Okay, to love others. Okay. So in Jesus' new law, okay, we have the new law of Christ, of love, okay, that Jesus gives us, okay. The great commandment, okay, the 2 great commandments. God, okay, with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. Okay? Now this imposes a moral obligation on us, okay? A duty. To love God, to love our neighbor, that's a moral obligation, that's a duty. So justice is, you can see it's rooted in moral obligations and duties. In God's mind, in the plan of God, okay? Now we can draw from this, okay, the fact that, well, we have a right to worship God based upon a moral obligation to do so, okay? If God tells us we have to worship Him, then there's a right to worship, okay? So, the right to worship, okay, the rights, okay, come from moral obligations, okay? And that's a Christian way of looking at things. For example, the right to freely worship, okay? It comes from our duty, okay? The duty we have to worship God. Okay? Now we have rights recognized in our Declaration of Independence. Can anyone think of in our Declaration of Independence, there is a recognition of certain rights that we have that Thomas Jefferson and mostly him, but maybe a couple of other authors penned that Declaration of Independence. What does the Declaration of Independence recognize as rights that are enumerated? Give an example, okay? Noah, what?
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and that's translated into our Constitution by life, liberty, and property, okay? So we have these rights. Where did the rights come from? Where, in the minds of the founders of our country, do rights come from of a right to life, a right to liberty, a right to the pursuit of happiness, or a right to property? Where did these come from? What's the origin of rights in the minds of, for example, our founders of the country, who put this in the Constitution, who wrote it in our Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution? Does anyone know where the rights come from? Have you all had a Constitution test?
Mm-hmm.
Have you? Okay. Do you remember back from your Constitution test where? How about the words we are endowed by our Creator with unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay. So our Constitution, well, actually our Declaration of Independence, recognizes that our rights are just not generated out of nothing. Someone just didn't think them up. They came from God. Okay. So true rights, okay, the rights to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, property, okay, they come from God. Okay. And because they come from God, okay, authentic rights, okay, true rights, okay, true rights, okay, are God-given, okay? And therefore, okay, inalienable. And what that means, you can't take them away. The government, okay, can't take it away, okay? Because the government doesn't give it. Okay? We don't have a right to life because the government gives us the right. Okay? We don't have a right to freedom to worship because the government gives it to us. We have a right to our life, a right to worship, because it comes from God. Okay? So the government can't take away because the government didn't give it. Okay? God did. Okay? God is the source. Okay? He's the source of rights. What we have today, there's a problem today in our culture with people talking about rights. Of rights that people claim they have that they're not rights. Just because you call something a right doesn't make it a right. But it's a real problem that we have in our present day culture, okay? Because the problem today, okay, people claim rights. Okay? Claim to have rights. Okay? Can you give me an example of someone, not someone, but of a right people claim exists, okay, that really doesn't exist from a Christian viewpoint? Okay? Cecilia, give me an example. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Abortion. People say that there's a right to abortion. Okay. A right to kill a child, okay, in the womb, okay, or partially born, okay. That's partial birth abortion, okay. You deliver a child, legs first, leave in the head, okay. Then you put in a needle, you suck the brains out, and you crush the head and take the child out. Okay. That's legal in this country. That is legal to do. A child 1 minute before birth, 9 months old, 8 months old, 7 months old, this is legal in the country. People claim abortion is a right. Where did this right come from? Anyone know where the claimed right to abortion comes from? It's not in the Constitution, okay? Where? Us. Well, rights don't come just from us. That's what, the problem is people just say, I have a right. Well, there's a claimed basis in law for this. Okay? Does anyone know what the right to abortion is based upon? This has wiped out a third of our people in the country for the past 73, 83, 93, 03, 13, 40, it'll be 41 years coming up January 22nd of this month, okay? Anyone going to the March for Life here? No? No one's going, no? Okay. I know there's a group going from the school here, okay? Yeah. Okay. Well, if this right exists, where does it come from? If you're going to debate someone, in regard to, they're claiming I have a right to abortion, I think there's a right to abortion, well, then you say to them, where does it come from? Just create it. I say, I have it because I want it. Okay? I have a right because I want a right. That's the problem today with people claiming rights. Okay? Is the so-called right to kill a child in the womb, is this a God-given right? God gives someone the right to kill another person? That's a violation of the Fifth Commandment. Okay? So where does the supposed right to abortion come from? Does anyone know? Anyone ever read where the supposed right comes from? Okay. Well, the Supreme Court in Roe versus Wade, okay, Roe v. Wade, okay, that's the abortion decision. Okay. By the way, Roe was not the name of the woman. Okay. It was Jane Roe and Jane Doe, 2 women. Those 2 women that were in the case, they never even had the abortions that they were wanting. The Planned Parenthood took their case and just used it as an example. They're both pro-life now. Okay. Yeah. They're against abortion. They said, we didn't know our cases were going to be used to have an abortion right foisted upon the nation, because the Supreme Court decision overturned every state law in the country.
Bless you.
It overturned every state law in the country and allowed abortion to be performed throughout the full 9 months of pregnancy. Okay. Well, Roe versus Wade, the Supreme Court decision, they said that the right to abortion was based upon, okay, the right, okay, to abort, okay, to abortion, was based on the right to privacy. Okay. Ever hear that? Okay, right to privacy. Okay. Now, if you may or may not recall from your days studying the Constitution, okay, where is there a right to privacy in the Constitution? Does anyone know? Where, Seth?
I think it was just implied.
That's right.
It's not really.
There is no right of privacy in the Constitution. The Constitution says nothing about a right to privacy. It is implied. Okay. So, do you know where it's implied from? That's good.
I
Good
don't
insight.
know the sources, but I think they use like 2 sources in the Constitution.
They did. One was the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution. The Fourth Amendment to the Constitution is it prohibits unreasonable searches and seizures. The police can't just come into your house and search your house or search your car without probable cause or without a warrant. Okay. Probable cause in an emergency, okay, or a warrant if they have to get it from a judge to come in and search your house. Okay. That's why. Why is this in the news right now? The right to privacy, okay, which emanates from, it's implied from the Fourth Amendment. Why, Seth? Why?
Well, are they saying that nowadays because of people that are overhearing maybe phone conversations?
Who's overhearing our phone conversations? The NSA, the National Security Association. They're listening to all of our phone conversations. They're listening in on all of them, okay? Do they have a right to do that? No, they don't have a right to do this, okay? There's a claimed right to say, well, you know, we have to protect people from terrorism. Well, there may be other ways of doing that, okay? But anyway, getting back to the right of privacy, okay? There's no right of privacy stated in the Constitution. It's implied from the Fourth Amendment, and then also from the Ninth Amendment, which says there are other rights that aren't necessarily enumerated. Okay, that's the Ninth Amendment to the Constitution, saying that just because we didn't list all the rights doesn't mean there are no more rights. So the Supreme Court said, well, based upon the Fourth Amendment and the Ninth Amendment, we'll create this right to privacy, and then based upon the right to privacy, that we'll say there's a right to abortion, because people have a right to privacy over their own bodies. Okay, the problem with that argument is that you're not talking about just the woman's body, you're talking about another body, okay, the child. And so the Roe versus Wade decision and the whole abortion rights issue, okay, is problematic. Okay? So we'll stop there for the day. Okay?